evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. It's True Crime with Jess Rose. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Tuesdays are my request evening. Thursdays are stories that I like to bring to you. I'm also over on the TikTok, which is Jess Rose 5472. Or you could join my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jess Rose 5472. You could comment or you subscribe, which I'd really appreciate. Or you could just watch, which I appreciate just as much. If you just watch, that'd be great. This evening's story is the Brutal Sophia Acosta Story, as the title says. It is brutal. It is a child. Very sad story. And I'm going to begin it now for you. Okay, so now we have Sophia Marie Acosta, born on the 5th of February 2008. She's born in California. It's an American story, sorry. Her mum, Erika Smith, her dad, Obadiah Acosta. I'll call him Obi for the story because I've only seen that as I go on. Now, Sophia, oh God, you need to see, you need to see this beautiful little girl. She's so pretty. Biggest brown eyes you've ever seen. Just gorgeous little girl. Said she was really sweet as well, like happy, just always, like woke up happy all the time. She was very girly. She loved like pink and dolls and all that. So she's like a little princess, and you can see that. You genuinely can. You only have to see a picture of her to be like, yeah, I can see her being a little princess. Now, her little sister Alexa. There's only 18 months between the two girls. So when Sophia turned 18 months, obviously, her little sister Alexa was born. And it was said that people, given the fact that Sophia was only 18 months, it was thought, she might be a bit jealous. She might get a little bit, I don't know, protective over her parents type thing, feeling like she was being pushed out. How some kids can feel. Not Sophia at all. It was said that she, from the minute little Alexa was brought home, she was just very mummy over her. She just claimed her. She loved her. She just wanted to play with her, which obviously when she's newborn she can't, but she genuinely, really doted on her little sister. Now, Erika and Obi, they broke up not long after Alexa was born. It just wasn't working out. And I think it was down to the fact that Obi worked on the road and he was away a lot. I think that had something to do with it. Erika felt he wasn't there for the girls, etc. Now, to me, it seems... All right, I can imagine being the partner of someone who's a long-distance lorry driver. Could be quite lonely. At the same time, you'd have to appreciate it'd be lonely for them too. And not only that, they're trying to earn money for the family. So I always find that I find I'm always torn when that comes along in situations, but it didn't work out. They do break up, and because of him working away so much, he doesn't see the girls as often as he'd like, or as often as they would like. I mean, Sophia, genuinely, she loved her dad. So it's quite sad that distance was created between between all of them, really. So Erika, she gets full custody of the girls, as you can imagine. All right. So now we're going to get to September 2010. At this point, Sophia is about 2.5, and Erika said that she'd had a few men come and go during the time between the breakup and, like I say, September 2010. But at this point, she meets a man by the name of Christopher Cherry. All right. Now, Christopher, all I can say, Erika, is score. Because Christopher was a drug addict and had been so for a very long time. Bit of a rougher upbringing. Apparently got addicted to heroin at the age of 15. You know, so a little bit of a rougher upbringing. No excuse for what I'm about to tell you, but I'm just letting you know that that was his history. Now, at this point, when she meets Christopher, for some reason, Erika thinks she can save him. She can get him off the drugs. She can save this man. You know, he's a good man, really, and she's going to be the one to save him and to change him. Of course she is. So they're now living in Exeter in California, and she decides to let Christopher move in with her and the girls, you know, because, you know, she's going to save him. So anyway, she allows him to move in, as I've said, and rather than helping Christopher get clean and saving him, after a few months, Erika begins taking heroin with him. Must have saw it as a case if you can't beat them, join them type deal. Just absolutely ridiculous. Now, around this time, people begin to notice that the usually happy and chatty Sophia, she begins to become more reserved and quiet, starts to get noticed amongst family members, even neighbours, because Erika and the girls had moved into this property, obviously before she met Christopher, and the neighbours said you would see her outside a lot with the girls playing in the park. It looked like she was a doting mum, and it was just her and the girls against the world type deal. And they noticed that after Christopher became a fixture of this family, young family, they didn't see them outside so much anymore. They didn't see them out in the playgrounds. They didn't. That was the girls. They didn't even see Erika, really. Now we come to the 7th of May 2011. All right, and at this point, little Sophia is now age 3. She's 3. All right, I'm going to say it again. She's 3. All right. Now, Sophia and Alexa, they were having an afternoon nap. Now, obviously, with Sophia being 3, little Alexa would be about 18 months at this point. Erika, who had also dropped off, all right, was woken up to Christopher shouting that Sophia wouldn't wake up. Now, Erika, she'd already started to stir because she'd heard a bang upstairs. But quite soon after she heard that bang, she heard Christopher shouting. She runs up the stairs. And when she runs into the bedroom, she can see her daughter, Sophia, on the floor, okay, with just her underwear on, and vomit everywhere. So at first glance, she's seen that. Now, Sophia's eyes were open, but she wasn't responding. And she's very confused as to what's going on. Don't forget, she's just woke up herself. So she runs downstairs to phone 911. When she comes back up the stairs, Christopher has got Sophia in the bathroom and he's got her under the shower, under a cold shower. Sound familiar, guys? And she's obviously like, what are you doing? He's like, he'll wake her up, but it doesn't. So she wraps a towel around Sophia, she brings her downstairs, lays her on the floor, and as I said, 911 has been called. So when the paramedics come in, they see this little girl on the floor of the living room, naked, okay? They see Christopher kind of loitering around in the background, and Erika has run outside crying. Okay, this is the scene that the paramedics go into. Now, as I said, she's naked, she's unresponsive, and they begin performing CPR on her. And that's when they notice she's also wet. You know, they're a little bit confused as to the scene they've walked into. They've also walked into a so-called house that's a hole. It's really dirty, this house is, okay? Now, as I said, Erika was crying outside. Christopher was being really quiet and shifty. But Sophia, all they're concentrating on is little Sophia, so they rush her to the hospital. Now, while they were in the back of the ambulance, one of the paramedics noticed that there is blood pooling underneath little Sophia. Okay. And the other paramedics also noticed like there's bruises on this little girl. So obviously the police are called as well. Little Sophia's put on a ventilator, and it's being used to keep her alive because she's got a very severe head injury. All right. Now the blood the paramedic had seen underneath her, they realised was actually coming from her genitals. There was also blood in her eyes, in her mouth. This little girl was in a really bad way. And they do transfer her to a children's hospital that they hope can, help her. But 4 days later, on the 11th of May 2011, there's still no brain activity in little Sophia. She's 3. Say it again. Now, Obi, her dad, as we know, who'd been notified, Erika had told him when he'd rushed to the hospital that little Sophia had it was very specific as well, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and she choked on that. That was what he heard, and because he's so concerned with his daughter, he doesn't ask any more questions. He just wants to hold her, and he can't. She's got all these wires over her. She's tiny. She's got all these wires over her, and the most he could do was hold her hand. That's all he could do. But as I say, after 4 days, a decision's made to take her off the ventilator, and Sophia Marie Acosta dies, age 3. Okay. Now, whilst little Sophia was in the hospital, little Alexa, who'd been at home, as I said, was around 18 months. She was taken into care because this is a very odd situation that everyone's walked into. And Obi, at the moment, while he's been in the hospital, doesn't know that there's all these questions going on around the police, the paramedics, and everything that's happened. He's took Erika at her word that his daughter's choked on a sandwich, and it's stopped oxygen getting to her brain. That's where the unresponsiveness has come from. This is what he's trying to put together. He must have been so confused. Now, the autopsy's done on little Sophia, okay? And her manner of death is very quickly marked as a homicide. Her cause of death, blunt force trauma, okay? Now, the pathologist, who'd been doing it for a very long time, doing that job, he said it was one of the worst things he's seen in his time in that role. He found what he was looking at was torture of a little girl. There was internal brain hemorrhaging. She had marijuana in her system. There was bruises on her scalp and underneath her scalp. She had trauma to her back and her buttocks, which was external. You could see this trauma. She had abdominal injuries. There was contusion to her diaphragm. And there was quite obvious injuries from a brutal sexual assault of this 3-year-old baby. Now, Erika, when questioned, she'd said, when obviously she's questioned about these injuries to her daughter, so she fell down the stairs a couple of days beforehand, and I think she fell on some blocks. Right, okay. And then that was 2 days beforehand. before the 5th. And then on the day she was found unresponsive in her bedroom, she'd fell onto a toy metal shopping trolley or shopping cart. My child had one. You know, you get the, you know, they're literal replicas of an adult shopping trolley, you know, when you're going through the supermarket. And she reckons she'd fell onto that and banged her head. All right. Now, the doctor says that this would never have caused the injuries he found. The doctor was called Dr. Philip Hayden, sorry. He obviously, as I've mentioned, believes she was the victim of a brutal sexual assault. She was hit hard in the stomach at least twice during this sexual assault. And plus she'd been hit on the head with severe force. Now that's why he'd said it was a torture. His child had been the victim of just a horrific crime. And they're trying to pass it off that, oh, you know, she bumped her head a little bit. Now, the police search the home. You'll see why I'm pulling a face at that a little bit further along. But apparently they searched the home, the hole that was their home. There was blood spatter found in the girl's bedroom. Sophia's blanket that she'd been lying on had vomit and feces all over it. There was obviously proof of heroin in the home where them 2 little girls were. And as I mentioned, little Sophia had marijuana in her system. Now, Erika, she was still saying that the girls had gone for a nap. And she had fell asleep downstairs. So she doesn't know. I don't know what happened to my children. I don't know. She fell over. And she said, while she called 911, that Christopher had put little Sophia in the shower. That's why she'd been naked and wet. So she's trying to defend herself, but also trying to defend him, from what I'm hearing. Now, Christopher, what he says, he said, yes, Erika had fell asleep, and I'd gone up to check on the girls, because I'd heard a bang. He said when he'd gone in the room, Sophia was wrapped up in her blanket, and there was sick everywhere. Her eyes were open, and that's when he'd shouted for Erika. He says he put her in the shower to try and bring her around because she was unresponsive. You know, Erika came in, put the towel around her and brought her downstairs. Paramedics came. This is what he's saying, and that's what he sticks to. All right? So on the 2nd of June 2011, Christopher is arrested, and he's charged with murder. Okay? The special circumstances of which were torture, sodomy, and lewd and lascivious acts, as well as child abuse. All right? And the prosecution go for the death penalty, as they should. Okay? Now, what I'm going to say here is no one knows exactly what happened that afternoon. Okay? No one knows except little Sophia, who of course is no longer here to say what happened. Christopher, who's not saying anything different, so I don't know, I went upstairs, this is what's going on. But based on the autopsy, the doctor's findings, and the piecing of together of you know, what this child had been through, I'm going to say what is believed to have happened. Okay? Now, from when Christopher had moved in, he began disciplining the girls very quickly. Okay? You see, and it wasn't just, apparently, Alexa and Sophia. Apparently, he was hands-on with Erika. I'll come back to that. Now, he wanted those girls to call him daddy. They've got their own dad. They're a bit confused. They're like, why? And he doesn't like the fact that they're not listening to him. So apparently that's why he got a little bit violent with Erika. Get your girls to call me dad. All right? And as I said, he begins disciplining the girls as well. And this got worse as once Erika began taking heroin with him, because don't forget at the beginning, she was going to save him. She was going to help him. Once she started joining in and completely taking her eyes off the ball, then things started to go downhill for these little girls. And as I mentioned, people started noticing how quiet Sophia was getting. Now, they just noticed how quiet and nervous she was, all right? Now, her babysitter, okay, she saw Christopher disciplining, sorry, I'll put the fingers up, disciplining Sophia. One time she said she watched him do it, and she said it was way too hard. It was such an over what's the word, like an overkill of disciplining a child. She was really shocked by it, and she spoke to Erika, but Erika just shrugged. It's fine, it's okay, you know, he's just putting the girls in their place, I suppose. Now, in March of 2011, which was a couple of months before Sophia's death, little Alexa, the younger sister, she was brought to the hospital with a broken leg. And Christopher told Erika, because he'd been in charge at the time, Erika hadn't been in, and he says, it happened at the park. She fell down at the park. And the hospital were like, no, it doesn't happen that way. So then when she approached him and says, look, the hospital questioning what you're saying, he was like, oh, she fell down at a party. Say it again. And that was 2 months. 2 months between before little Sophia died. Okay, she could have put a stop to it then. She could have put a stop to it right at the beginning, before letting him move in. She could have just walked away the day she met him, when she realised he's a heroin addict. You know, he's not just on weed. He's not just a pothead. He's a heroin addict. But, you know, I can save him. And she still doesn't do anything about it. And I don't understand why child services weren't brought in. I don't understand why more wasn't done. She was 18 months old and she completely destroyed her leg, this little girl. And it was very odd. I mean, from beginning to end, Christopher was only in these girls' lives 8 months. 8 months. That 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, it's always around that time frame, isn't it? I found with an awful lot of cases, Gabriel Fernandez, again, that was 8 months, I believe, from when he went home to he was murdered. You know, it always seems within a year, doesn't it? Okay, but Alexa's returned back to Erika. Okay. Now the neighbours would hear shouting and crying at all times. Another babysitter noticed Sophia with a black eye. And Sophia would tell her, my behind hurts. Oh God, my behind hurts. And when she'd tell this babysitter, she'd be like, but don't tell Daddy. Referring to Christopher, because he'd managed to get his way and these girls were calling him dad. He'd punished them enough. You know, it wasn't through love or you know, needing this father figure. He'd forced them. And she'd beg this babysitter, please don't say anything. Like, you know, please don't tell him I told you, basically. You know, she wouldn't have been able to articulate that the way I just have, but that's what she meant, okay? Now, we get to the 6th of May 2011. And the 4 were seen. Now, remember I said the neighbours, before Christopher came on the scene, they would see Erika outside with the girls and playing and having fun. Well, they were seen. Now, the 6th is obviously the day before the 911 call's made. And they're out there and, you know, there's a picture. There's actually a picture of the 4 of them. And little Alexa's she's kind of just glaring at the camera, if I'm honest. But it's that second child thing. You know, you know, they can't hide their facial expressions, can they? Especially at that age. But little Sophia had put a smile on her face, and if you didn't know better, you'd think that's a nice photo. You know, they're dressed the same in these little flary skirts. It's a very the girls are beautiful. The girls are absolutely beautiful. It's just when you know, it's you see the picture differently. Okay. Now we get to the 7th of May 2011. All right, and that morning Christopher, well, he was angry. He needed a fix. He needed his fix, he did. And Erika, who'd originally told the police she'd only nipped out to go to the shops. Well, no. What had actually happened was he needed his fix and she knew she had to get it for him. Okay. So she said they did fight that morning, but she couldn't remember what it was about. I guarantee that girl knows what the argument was about. She's just not saying. And she goes on 2 buses to go and get their hit. I can't say it's him. It's her too. Now, when she gets back, she goes and checks on the girls, because she says when she gets back, the girls are having their nap. She comes downstairs and they both get high. All right. She says she vaguely remembers they'd put a film on. She goes, and then she dropped off. All right. But Christopher didn't. He didn't go to sleep. No, he had other things in mind. And he goes upstairs and takes Sophia from her bed to her bedroom floor. But don't forget, Alexa is in that room too. Apparently they slept in the same bed, the girls did. So I don't know if she was awake or not, but she was there. He takes her down to the bedroom floor and he begins to sexually abuse her. But when she cries, he punches her very, very hard in her stomach, at least twice. She begins vomiting and it knocks her out briefly. Okay. But when she comes to, she calls for mummy. And he panics. He panics. And he, if you remember, there was this thud or this bang that apparently he'd heard. That's why he'd gone upstairs, and it had made Erika start to wake up. She'd heard this thud. Well, the thud was Christopher smashing little Sophia's head off the floor. And he, obviously, hears Erika stirring then. And that's when he runs out and pretends to be the hero and shouts her and says, you need to come up, there's something wrong. After what he'd just done to her daughter. He then, while she runs downstairs to dial 911, gets Sophia into the shower. It was nothing about even trying to bring her around, I don't think. He needed to clean her to make sure there was no proof of him on her or her on him. Now, as I mentioned, Alexa was in that room. Now, if she didn't see everything, she would have heard it. A poor little girl. Obviously the two of them, I mean the two of them, but that, oh God, it's just a horrific. Now, as I'd mentioned, he'd been arrested, he'd been charged, Christopher had, okay? But 5 years go by because, as I've said, he doesn't admit to anything. Erika was high as a kite, doesn't know anything. There's not a lot of evidence there. So it takes them a long time to get this case together. 5 years, in fact. And in that time, Alexa, obviously Sophia's little sister, she's returned to Obi, her dad. He's given full custody. Now, it said that because of what had happened, he had to go through a lot of classes, you know, basically how to deal with kids, control temper, all that sort of stuff. But he passes with flying colours, and he's given full custody of little Alexa. All right. Now, the trial, finally, is the 26th of September 2016. All right. Now, as I mentioned, the DA wants the death penalty. He wants the book thrown at this complete cretin. So, because he's pled not guilty, there's the whole trial to go through. Erika, I was sickened because there is footage of her, you know, in the witness box. Is it witness box? Giving her evidence. And so, yeah, he'd hit me. He threw picture frames at me. And he pushed me against a wall. Did he? Did he really? Did he give you black eyes? Did he break your leg? Did he sexually assault you and then murder you? No, he didn't. I'm sorry, I had no sympathy whatsoever. None, which is why I mentioned earlier that I'd come back to it. I can't find anything in me to have any sympathy for this woman whatsoever. She invited him in. She knew he hadn't hid it. She knew he was a heavy drug addict. She then begins taking that drug with him. She then sees bruises, abrasions, cuts on her children, broken bones. And she turns a blind eye to all of it. And then we're supposed to, you know, feel bad for her because he gave her a smack now and again. I don't. I feel nothing. Feel nothing for this woman. She says that the reason she lied, because don't forget she lied to Obi, the girl's dad, saying that she choked on a sandwich. She lied to the police on about the metal shopping trolley and the supposed fall down the stairs a few days beforehand. She'd lied, and she says she lied because she didn't want the kids taken off her. I can't. Now, the DA, as I say, he's put it forward as a severe sexual assault, a beating, and a torture. The defence, though, because there was lack of evidence connecting Christopher, you know, his DNA would be in the house because he lived there, and they struggled putting him together with what happened to Sophia. Okay, so the defence was saying that the injuries were from accidents, the accidents that have been mentioned, and the CPR that was performed on her. It was a medical mystery, apparently, and the blood was from a blood clotting disease and constipation. That's the defence they put forward, and they ran with it. They believed they were getting him off with this defence. So obviously witnesses are brought forward. As I mentioned, Erika came forward. The paramedic who I'd mentioned had saw the blood pooling underneath little Sophia. He said, you know, I think he'd done the job for like 16 years. He says he never used to take any cases he'd see during the day, he'd never bring that home with him. And he says he couldn't help bringing this one home because little Sophie, you know, she was the same age as his daughter, and it just broke his heart. He says he'll never ever get the image of that little girl on the floor out of his brain again. It'll always be there. There was a caretaker that was brought forward. Now, as you might have, if you remember, sorry, a little bit earlier on, I mentioned about the police searching the home, and I kind of rolled my eyes. This is why, because a caretaker was also brought forward at the trial to say that after everything, he'd gone in to clean up the house. I don't know if he was a landlord or, it says caretaker, maintenance man. It was somebody who went in to do, you know, a clean up of the property after everyone had gone. And he said in the little girl's room, he found a condom wrapper in an 18-month and 3-year-old little girl's bedroom. He found a condom wrapper and a sexual device in the little girl's room. That's what he found in there. And that's why I was like, what did the police... I'm so confused. Like, did they search the house or not? What went on there? So the 14th of November 2016, he's found guilty, and his sentence is he's been sentenced to death. You know, which, as we know, very happy with those outcomes. Very, very happy with them. But in 2019, Gavin Newsom, California governor, I have my own opinions on him. And after hearing this, I don't think I'm too wrong. He decides to put a stay on all executions in California whilst he's in office. This was against what the public had wanted. In 2016, California tried to bring in a ban of the death penalty. Of the people voted against that. They want the death. In fact, they wanted it done quicker, because obviously it costs a lot of money to keep these people on death row. It costs them just as much to keep them in prison. You know, at least there's an end coming. And against the public outcry of what the decision he'd made, he put a stay on all the executions until he's out of office. Now, I believe he's got until 2026. I think he's out next year. I think he's going for the presidency in 2028, but don't get me on my soapbox. District Attorney Tim Ward, after this decision, said it is abundantly clear that victims and the will of California voters are not a priority for Governor Newsom, which rounds up everything I've just said, I think. So until he's out of office, Christopher will remain in that prison. He shouldn't still be. This is 14 years after he did that. It's that beautiful little girl, that little 3-year-old. 14 years. Apparently Gavin Newsom, you know, he's decided, I'll be a good guy. Let's, you know, apparently because the death penalty, what was his wording now? The death penalty, it affects people of colour and people with disabilities the most. Right. No virtual signalling there then. None at all. Anyway. Okay. Back to Erika. Well, I'll say back to Erika. There's not a lot that can be said. Nothing happened. Nothing done. Just living her life. You know, mummy dearest. Nothing. I've looked, I can't see it. I've got to admit, with regards to this case, there's not a lot on it, which is very, very, very sad. But I can't see. I've even gone into the Facebook group to see if there's any comments in there. You know, sometimes you might find people who know people, but all it, you know, it's just everyone else saying, you know, that it can't be resolved until she has been given us, you know, some sort of punishment too. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It genuinely doesn't. And, you know, had she not known he was a drug addict, had she not known, and she just met this nice guy and invited him in to her girls' lives, again, even that. But let's just go with that. Let's just say she didn't know he was a drug addict, all right? And she wasn't doing drugs herself. And that these things were happening when she wasn't in the home. Let's just give her the benefit of the doubt on all of that. What is her excuse for not noticing the black eyes, the broken legs, the bruises? What's her excuse for leaving her two little girls with a man she doesn't even really know? No matter what way I look at this case, I can't give her anything. I just can't. I have nothing but contempt. But yeah, just that was the Brutal Sophia Acosta story. Just very, very, very sad. It makes me very angry. This case has. They all do, but I think just the afterwards has really irritated me as well. It's also said that when after Christopher had been found guilty, and he was waiting for sentencing, there was a call. Obviously, their calls are recorded, and there was a call that was brought forward where his dad had said to him, because apparently his dad's going to fight to the end of the earth to prove his son's innocence, and his dad had said to him, look, you know, you've got to stop smiling in the courtroom, even if the jury's not there, which is, why are you putting like, points on it? Like, why? Just ask him what he's smiling at. But apparently he told him to stop smiling even when the jury's not there, because Sophia's family is there. And apparently his response to that was sod them, F them. I've seen a few things, but it wasn't a very nice response, and that was recorded. So it didn't put him in a very good light at all. Not that he needed that to put him in a bad light. I'm just saying that didn't go down too well either. But yeah. Oh, so sad. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I am here every Tuesday and Thursday, 8 p.m. And if you're watching this now, the story's gone up at the weekend. But like I say, I'm live every Tuesday and Thursday if you'd like to join. But thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you soon. I'm back on Thursday, so I'll see you soon. Take care. Thank you.